Rust! Hey guys, most of us have had this happen. We either leave our table saws out too long in an unregulated environment, or we just buy one that's full of rust like this. In most cases, it's just surface rust. Really not a huge deal to get rid of. So I'll show you a couple easy steps to get some of the surface rust off my table saw. Hopefully it will help you out. I just have to run downstairs, get a few more supplies, and let's get to it. Rust! Things we're gonna need to clean off this top. First thing, scraper. Any scraper will work. Razor blade, doesn't matter. As long as it's sharp, it'll work. See if I can grab here from my magic bucket. WD-40. Really important to keep that top lubricated while we're cleaning off this rust. It'll also help preventing rust in the future. If things get real bad, we'll move to a palm sander. Palm sanders work great because they don't actually have a lot of cutting action. So we don't really want to cut into this top. We just want to remove the rust. I'm going to put this behind me because I really don't want to use this if we don't need it. And I suggest you do the same. Gloves. Because nobody wants to go inside with rust-covered hands. It's gross. Get some gloves. And finally, Scotch-Brite pad. This will work great for the initial scrub. We may have to use sandpaper, but we're really going to try to scrape most of it first. Then we'll move on to WD-40 with a Brillo pad. Hopefully that will remove the majority of the rust. Again, this is mostly surface rust. I don't really see any pitting here. So that should do it with like about 100 hours worth of work. But if we need to move to sandpaper, we'll use a really fine grit and we'll tackle that when we cross that bridge. So let's see how it goes. But let's get started. It's a bonus. It's a bonus. It's a bonus material. Dry lube. So you don't need to use this, guys, but I highly recommend it at the end to coat the surface. Cast iron rusts like a knucking futso, and you definitely don't want to leave that surface bare, or you'll have that same problem happen again. Dry lube is great at creating a slick surface while also not attracting dirt and dust like WD-40 would. So, something to consider, not 100% necessary, highly recommended. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do a dry scrape of the whole tabletop. Get your razor blade, preferably with a handle. Pick this up for like $3 at Walmart. Totally worth it. You don't want to be smashing your fingers against these hard, sharp edges. Then what you're going to do with a flat razor blade on the tabletop, again, ensuring that you're not angling the blade in any way, you're going to lightly scrape the whole tabletop off. You don't need a lot of pressure here. A lot of pressure is actually bad as you'll gouge the cast iron. Cast iron is very soft. Now, be smart. Don't be like me. Wear a mask. This creates a lot of dirt and kind of nasty dirt crud particles. We don't want that in our lungs. So what you're going to do is just go back and forth with light strokes. And as you can see, quite a bit of rust actually comes off just from this initial scraping. Some people like to use WD-40 with this, with the initial scraping, but I just think that makes a huge cruddy mess. I'm not a huge fan. This will remove 80% of it, and then we can hit the rest with a Scotch-Brite pad or sandpaper with WD-40 afterwards. Much less mess. And again, if you like ASMR, stay for the next few minutes. This is great for that. ASMR. 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 Okay, so I totally didn't even think of the miter gauge tracks here. So what I did is I just got a normal razor blade like this, and it seems like it works if you just hold it at an angle like this and kind of just, push down one side and then do the same for the other like this. Seems to work, a little tedious, but seems to be getting the job done. So yeah, pick up some different size razor blades and find the ones that work best for your application. But I don't hate this. It's not too bad. Thought this was going to be a heck of a lot worse. So after scraping, it actually looks pretty darn good. You know, from a functional standpoint, it's nice and smooth. All those little dust nibs are gone and those rust nibs are removed. You could honestly just spray this with WD-40 or some of that dry lube and call it a day. I'm gonna take it a step further. You know, I want it a little bit cleaner than this. I think actually this was stored in a warehouse with a bunch of bird poop and stuff, so there's a lot of like etch marks that I'm probably not gonna be able to remove, but at least I'll do my best to get most of this removed. So my plan is WD-40 as a lubricant. We're gonna take a Scotch-Brite pad and go to town. And hopefully that will spiff things up even more, and then we'll call it a day. Again, tabletops don't have to be perfect. I know a lot of these guys in videos, they get them to a mirror shine. That's awesome. You know, I commend those guys for that hard work, but it's a tool. After all, we're gonna scratch it again. Let's just get it 80% of the way it was. That's good enough for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hit it with a bunch of WD-40. Don't spray this on the floor and then break your neck when you fall. Quick disclaimer. WD-40 also, you know, while it's not a like rust remover, it'll help loosen up some of the light rust. So kind of a, you know, two-part solution here. Lubrication, some rust removal ability. Then we're just gonna take a Scotch-Brite pad and go to town. Okay guys, well, I did as much as I could with the Scotch-Brite. I have some more scratches here that I really just don't feel like taking 3 or 4 months to get rid of. So I grabbed kind of my crappy little palm sander here. I'm really not worried about destroying this thing. And also it's good because it's not very aggressive. It's not really gonna cut into the table, especially with a very fine sandpaper. Here I have 600 grit. You know, there's a really low risk of me gouging the table. But keep an eye out, guys. We really don't want to, you know, cause any swirls or gouges. So just go nice and light. Just let the sander do the work and work your way across the table. Wipe, new sandpaper, repeat the process till you're satisfied. Now I'm going to hit it with some 1200 grit sandpaper. This should really smooth things out. I don't think you have to do this, but it's just going to make me feel better. At this point, I'd say we're looking pretty good. You know, this is good enough for me. I don't really like going further than that because, again, I don't want to destroy this precision ground surface. In the miter grooves, all that matters to me is that they're smooth. So I got all the crud out of there. I really don't like sanding in the miter grooves because you're gonna cause slop with the miter gauge. This is really easy to remove these edges, and these are, you know, precision machines. So I don't really like messing around in there. Yeah, it looks a little ugly, but again, it's a tool. The important part is that it's smooth. That miter gauge will, you know, now ride nice and smooth in that groove. And that's all that really matters. But I would say, compared to what it looked like, you know, this is a pretty big upgrade. I think it's looking pretty good now. For a 15-year-old saw stop, I really can't, you know, ask for more for this thing. It looks good. So at this point, you can stop here. Everything's smooth, the rust is removed. make sure you get as much WD-40 off as possible. You know, the WD-40 will prevent rust, but I'm telling you, it's gonna collect sawdust, dirt. It's an oily substance. You know, oils attract dirt. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take it that one step further, and I'm gonna use a dry lube. So I'm gonna manually remove as much of that WD-40 as possible, and then I'm gonna hit it with alcohol. You could use any kind of solvent, alcohol, mineral spirits, doesn't really matter. You just want something that'll actually remove that WD-40. But keep in mind, you need to do this right away. So the second you're done with the alcohol and it dries, immediately apply the dry lube. This could actually flash rust in a pretty short amount of time. So again, clean, immediately apply, and then you should have no problems. So what I'm gonna do is just put some alcohol on there. Clean it up as much as I can. Remove all that WD-40, pull up my pants, because no one wants to see that. I like to use 90% or denatured alcohol if I have it. It dries really quickly. That way you can move on with your life. 70% works too if you have it. But I'm a 90% guy. And then shake up your dry lube. Again, dry lube is literally usually like a solid suspended in a solvent. So you really need to shake that up to make sure it's well suspended before you spray it. If it's really cold out and this is frozen, don't even bother. Wait till a warmer day or a warmer shop. So now I'm just gonna coat all the surfaces here. I go pretty liberally, especially on the first coat. The maintenance coat after this, I just spray lightly every once in a while. But I want to really make sure that I'm forcing out all of that alcohol in water. Alcohol is mostly water, so. And then I just wipe it in really well. And I'll probably get a new rag because that one's gross. Let's give that a good wipe. For the heck of it, why don't we try the miter gauge? Oh, like butter! Like butter, dude! Look at that. So again, the dry lube, not only does it protect it, but you know, it does what it's supposed to. It lubricates. So now anytime you push a piece of wood over your table saw, you're not gonna get any binding. It's gonna really be nice and smooth and work properly. And again, dry lubes, they don't typically leave any residue on your wood. That's another big consideration here. Some of the solvents, or not solvents, some of the silicone-based lubes, they could potentially, you know, leave a little residue on your wood. And if you're going to finish that with a water-based formula, or like a water-based poly, or you know, any kind of water-based paint, the oil won't allow it to stick. So again, I don't think it's that big of a problem. I've never had an issue, but in theory, it's a problem. So dry lube, definitely the way to go. I'll give this one more quick coat. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Can't really hurt anything. If anything, I'm just going to wipe it off again. And that's it. Now we have a perfectly functional, much better looking tabletop. Now, again, do this as much as you want. I will warn you though, you don't want to ruin the precision ground of the table. You know, that's a big deal. So do it as far as you'd like, but now you know the easiest and least invasive way to clean your table saw or machinery tabletops. Boring Guy DIY. I'm out.